see what additional questions there may be on anything that we've been talking about.
Yeah, there's one in the chat from Jeff Porter. I don't know, do you see it, Liz, or do you want me to read it to you?
Would you read it to me, Ken?
Yeah, assuming the long-awaited PFAS hazardous constituent rule is finalized, what does EPA think the real-world impact of that rule would be in Massachusetts, where most, if not all of the time, or all of the 9 PFAS identified are already listed in the MCP? Might DEP intend to handle any impacted sites in Mass differently, and if so, how?
Well, MassDEP, the waste site cleanup program and the drinking water program currently lists 6 PFAS compounds. I think with the federal MCL, I actually can't say this with confidence, but there are some additional compounds that we don't currently regulate it that have been proposed to be included in the federal MCL. This is separate and apart from the RCRA constituents. So my understanding is the listing of these constituents would eventually mean, excuse me. Ken, if could, do you have the power to mute?
I don't have mute power.
Really?
You do.
Excuse me, Ken. Shelby Marakovsky from Ty and Bond. Could you please mute? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Susan. For some reason I can't zoom. I can't focus on where the sound is coming from. So, so as I was talking about the RCRA hazardous constituents. So my understanding is that would mean that at those sites, those would be taken under consideration in the assessment. I have a question about what it means for the MCP. I think we currently only list our 6, but our MOML has incorporated RCRA constituents in that list. So I think that's a question I had as well in terms of whether in those 9, should they go forward with those, how they get included in our list of what we look at under the 21E program. So I'm not answering a question, Jeff. I know
Liz,
that.
Can I maybe follow up a little bit more specifically, because my question might not have been so as you know, I think the regulated community and often DEP prefer to address things that can be addressed under the MCP and not as RCRA corrective action. So this rule is only going to apply to RCRA corrective action sites. And so I was trying to get at, has DEP thought about whether things that could be dealt with under the MCP at these sites could still be dealt with under the MCP, or whether they would have to be done, those things would have to be done as RCRA corrective actions under the RCRA regulations?
Well, we do have a number of RCRA corrective actions that are being handled under the MCP.
Right.
And nothing related to this would, I think, change that for those sites that
was the question.
Under the MCP. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
But I still do have that question about, would these eventually end up on our oil and hazardous material lists, since we draw from those sources like the RCRA list for that list, and how this will all play out in terms of the constituents that are being included under the federal MCL and eventually the DEP's drinking water standard.
I don't think that's, I think even in the lives of old people like me, I think that's not going to be relevant, because the thing that was curious to me about this rule, which was promised over 2 years ago, is in the context of the other things EPA is planning to do, including listing PFAS as CERCLA hazardous substances, and which will definitely bring them into the MCP. And also as hazardous waste. I think this is going to be a moment on the way to a more comprehensive thing. But I was just wondering whether whenever the federal government gets involved in things that Massachusetts has already been doing a good job on, I get a little nervous. So you answered my question. And I mean, I think we all see a world where at least these 9 PFAS, if not 12 PFAS, are going to be federally listed soon, and then they'll be on the mass list because they'll have been federally listed. Does that make sense?
That's the part I am not 100% sure of. Well, there are lots of parts of this that I'm not 100% sure of. I don't know. I don't think we have a default rule that our MOML is, incorporates in whole all of those lists. I see our attorney, Luke Rogers, wanting to jump in. So Luke, do you want to?
I turned my camera on, I guess, which is a signal. It's an interesting question. And I'm not sure I understand it completely, Jeff, but I don't know if this is helpful or relevant, but one of the things that I keep coming back to when I'm thinking about these various different definitions of hazardous substances and materials and so on, is that the MCP definition of hazardous material is very different from the CERCLA definition of hazardous substance, and doesn't even require something to be a RCRA characteristic waste. I mean, this is why we arguably had the authority to regulate all PFAS before we even listed the 6. So again, that's just a definitional comment. I don't know if that's helpful or relevant. I know less about how these RCRA corrective actions are being managed right now.
Yeah, I totally agree with that characterization, Luke. And you're right, Liz, as a matter of statute, the MCP might not be required to identify everything that's a CERCLA substance on the list, but I can't think, for the reason that Luke just said, I can't think of a CERCLA, and maybe somebody on the call, maybe this is a good trivia question. I'll offer a Starbucks gift card as a prize. If somebody can identify something that's listed under federal law that is under CERCLA, which isn't on the MCP list.
On the memo, yeah.
I don't think there is one, but it's a great trivia question.
Right. And, as Luke said, PFAS, even before we had the PFAS RCs and the standards, we considered PFAS under the MCP to be a hazardous material. And when you're doing analysis at a site, you're going to be getting results that show constituents beyond those that we have specific standards for. So I think that's a good comment. Thank you, Luke. So are there any other questions or comments people want to make? Okay. All right. So I think then we can wrap up, and thank you all for being here. And the next time we meet, the new amendments will be in effect. Hopefully that launch will go relatively smoothly. But if parts of it don't, we will be working on addressing things that come up. So please, keep us posted on any issues you're coming across, providing us with comments or submitting questions and all the rest on the MCP and other parts of the program you heard about today. It's always good to hear about things that you're coming across sooner rather than later. So thanks all for being here, and enjoy the rest of this very sunny day.